Okay. Welcome to Let's Talk. I'm J.R. Stewart, the conservative social justice warrior, and today is our first episode of a new show that we're going to start called Let's Talk. This show is being brought to you because we're still going to bring about the revolution, and this is the start of the final countdown for the political party that we call the Democrat Party that has wreaked havoc on America. Today we have a very special guest. When I say special, I mean very special. And he has been an entrepreneur, business owner, and educator. And not just an educator, but he went back to school later in life to become an educator because he identified a problem that was in the educational system that he wanted to help correct and fix, because his view was that if he didn't become part of the solution, that as long as he sat on the sideline, he was part of the problem. And Everett, we welcome you to the show, and I'm going to purposely not say your last name because I don't want the crazies out there to look you up and try to disrupt your life in any way. But if you want to fully introduce yourself, you're more than welcome. Everyone, let's welcome Everett to the show. And Everett, give us a few words of anything I may have left out.
Well, I think you covered it pretty well. Yeah, no, I do not mind people knowing who I am. I think it's important that people need to be willing to stand up for what they believe in. So my name is Everett Brunson, and I'm a retired teacher and principal in Texas. I think it was just serendipity that both JR is a Texas native, and I'm pretty much a Texas native by definition. I was actually born in California, but my dad was in the Navy at the time, and he was a lifelong Texas resident. So I claim to be a native-born Texan. And anyway, Jimmy, it's just a pleasure to be here talking to you.
Okay. And guys, Everett has been a little modest. He's not just an educator and a principal, but Everett specialized in turning schools around, creating programs. I believe it was one of them was called the ECHS, where high school kids get a chance to go to college, junior college, and by the time they graduate high school, 4 years later, they have hopefully have enough credits to have an associate's degree. I think, Everett, that needs to be rolled out to every school in Texas. And why that hadn't happened, I'm not sure, but I guarantee you at the next Collin County executive meeting, we get somebody from House District 3 or 70 to come and speak. I will be bringing this up and using your name as a person that they can consult with if they need more information about how the program works.
And when you talk to the McKinney School Board, they do have a version of an early college high school already in operation. I can't remember the name. There was a lady that was running it. I don't know if the program is still ongoing. And each one is unique to each district that does it.
Okay.
And I have to be honest with you. That's one of the things that I like about Texas is local control. That way, each district, each board of trustees can build a program that's tailored to the needs of their students. But there is something to that effect in McKinney, or it was before I retired. I've been retired. This is going on 4 years now.
Okay.
But let me say this: the district that I retired from, their early college program ran to where it was actually free to the students. In other words, the students, their books were paid for, their tuition was paid for by the district, and it actually cost the district over the 4 years, from their freshman year through their senior year, it cost the district approximately $4,500 per student to do this thing.
That's it?
And so, that's it. That's all that it costs, and that's over the 4 years. Now, when you take that, we have about 400 kids. It really ranged a little bit more, but we tried to do 100 kids in each class. So the very first year we did it, we had 100 kids entering the program, and then the second year we would add another 100 kids. And, those first kids, the 100 that started out, maybe one or two would drop out of the program or they would move. But each year we would add 100 kids to the program. And so when you add up 400 kids times $4,500 per kid, it does become an investment, from the district. But the local, population, they knew what the school district was doing, and they continued to vote in the same school board members. They continued to support the superintendent, and that kind of goes back to the whole concept of local control. And for the parents, it saved them, depending on what school the kid would eventually go to, $30,000, $60,000 it would save them. And
yes.
I think when you look at return on investment, I think that's one of the best things that in education that can be done for raising kids up and allowing themselves to raise them up and get a college degree.
Absolutely correct, Everett. And I think taxpayers, especially those of us that pay property tax, all we want to see is a good investment being made. And a program like this and these results is worth the investment. I mean, for whether you're going to college or not, just having that associate degree already under your belt coming out of high school gives you a little bit of a leg up on just the high school graduates. And so it may give you an opportunity to go into the workplace without necessarily having to go to college first to get the skills and the credentials that you need. With that being said, Everett, let's get into the interview part of this, if you don't mind. And this is something that's very close to me, and we need your response, we need your insight for being an educator and a principal and headmaster. We have teachers. I spoke with a teachers group about 2 weeks ago, and the number one issue that kept coming up over and over, and I'm not sure there's a great deal I can do about it as a city council person, but I would certainly lend a voice to it and do what I can, is teachers are concerned about losing their jobs, about not having their contracts renewed if they make public statements and someone disagrees or file a complaint against them with the district. They've been told by HR departments that even if you're not representing yourself as a teacher or as a member of the district or an employee of the district, if someone were to find out there in social media land, and this is what these trolls do these days, and they file a complaint with the district, then the district will be forced to take action. And they were led to or made to believe that action meant they could not have their contracts renewed.
Yeah, and that's certainly possible. And it's another case of, this is just another example of cancel culture. The river appears to just flow in one direction. That, I have found that if a person in their own personal social media, their Facebook page, their Twitter, whatever it is that they use to speak to the public and interact with the public, if they espouse a basic liberal view, pick anyone that you want, nothing negative ever seems to happen. If they express a conservative view, well, the next thing you know, you're under a microscope, and you may find yourself without a job or a contract. And it's a real risk. The way administrative law is that you're not supposed to express any kind of political statements to endorse any candidate in the confines of the classroom or from the pulpit, if you will, of your public school position. But you're free to express that privately outside of school. But, I think we're both aware that there have been cases where a person has done that and they've found themselves without a job. Now, in some cases, JR, the reason for the dismissal is laid against another reason.
Mm-hmm.
You can basically be fired for anything, even if you're a teacher. It's a little bit higher hurdle if you're. And when I use this word tenure, all I'm saying is that you are no longer on a probationary contract with the district. And in Texas, that's generally 2 years. If your contract has been renewed 2 years in a row, then it's much harder to dismiss you. But if they want to get rid of you, they'll find a reason.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it's a problem. It's an issue.
Now, Everett, I believe you told me the story of where you sort of encountered this in your teaching career with one of your students who sort of misunderstood you and believed you to be a racist when you stated your political affiliation or ideology. So tell us that story for the audience.
Well, okay. And of course, no names will be used here. It was somewhat early in my teaching year, probably my third or fourth year of teaching. I was teaching a class of freshmen. The subject was integrated physics and chemistry, and it's just an introductory course. And I had 3 young black ladies, so they were all approximately 14 years old. They sat in the back corner of the room. And, even when the incident happened, I couldn't really put my finger on what the trigger event was. But at some point in a class discussion, someone asked me what my political affiliation was, and I just said, well, I'm Republican, and let it go at that. I wasn't talking about any particular political issues. Well, the next time we had class, I don't know if it was the very next day or the day after that, these 3 young ladies came in with a totally different attitude towards me, and I didn't connect the 2 events. All of a sudden, I knew that they went from cordial to hateful, 0 to 60. And, I tried to find out what the problem was, and they weren't cooperative. And this went on for almost 2 weeks. And it got progressively worse and worse. And until finally, I tried to talk with the girls, tried to find out what was going on. And, of course, they wouldn't explain why they were angry with me. So I went to the school counselor, and I won't use her name, but she's a very, very great lady, one of the best counselors I ever worked with. She was black, and she had grown up in East St. Louis. And I explained what was going on, and I said, I don't know what it is, Bev. There, I just said her name. But anyway, I don't know what's going on, but could you look into it and let me know? So she did. And a couple of days later, she came back to me. She said, it's because you're a Republican. I said, what? She said, yeah. She said, look, I'm from St. Louis, and I can tell you that when we were raised to believe that all Republicans are racist. And she said, it's the same situation with these 3 girls. Well, I had never come across that. We talk about, like the Palestinians, how they teach their kids from birth, nursery rhymes and things like this.
The Jews.
The Jews are evil, that they eat children and all this other stuff. But I mean, I honestly could not imagine that the same thing happened in the United States. And this counselor told these girls something unique. And I didn't quite agree with her take on it, but I thought, you know what, still a life lesson, let's do it, move on. She told them, young ladies, even if this man came to the classroom wearing a KK hood and sheet, you were there to learn, and that's exactly what you're going to do. You do not let whatever he believes or what he doesn't believe interfere with what your job is, and your job is to learn. And, when she told me that, I said, well, certainly you don't think that I believe that. She said, no, but it doesn't make any difference. It's not your burden, it's their burden. I said, well, okay. And things got a little bit better. I mean, it never returned to the cordial relationship we had at the beginning, but at least I think they were willing to believe that I was not the devil.
All right. Let's, next question I want Everett, I want to to make sure I wrap it or frame it correctly. I have a sister-in-law who's an educator. She's someone like you. I mean, her specialty is going into failing schools and help turning them around. And I think she's done this several times with some schools that are on the failing list. And her and her other friends, other educators, would tell me stories about how, today they have, it's reading is fundamental. The next week is a different program. You got to take down all the RIF stuff from last week, and then next week is a different program. But then the biggest thing I started to hear was the TAS test, or STARS test, whatever they call it. Back then, this was years ago. How they would have to spend all their time teaching the test, and that they really wasn't really teaching the kids as much as they were preparing them on how to be good test takers. Fast forward up till today, the same group of teachers I met with a few weeks ago are telling me that this test, I think they call it the STARS test, or I think back then it was called TAS, but I think it's called STARS now, that the math section on there only required a 58 to pass. I think the reading section was a 51, and history or social science was a 38. But they're telling me how watered down the test is, and I'm thinking this is not really helping our kids. To lower the bar that low where everyone can pass should not be our goal. Our goal should be to raise the bar and give the kids the knowledge and the skills necessary to cross that bar so they would really accomplish something. The sort of the bigotry of low expectation, as George Bush would call it. There was a professor out of Stanford who wrote a book called Losing the Race, who basically pointed out the same thing, but he based it on low expectation in the education system based on race, because he couldn't explain why young black boys were some of the best students in kindergarten and first grade, and by sixth grade they were the worst students. Other than they were cute and adorable in the first grade, and then they're criminals by the time they get to the sixth grade. So can you take a few moments to talk about that with your experience when you were in the system, and now that you're outside the system, and you can, of course, fairly critique it without, any repercussions to your employment. You may be one of the best people to talk about this.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a lot of things to unpack, because they're all connected, they're all interrelated, and they were, as far as testing is concerned, they were all done with the best intentions. But just like everything else, when you do that, if you don't keep close watch on what's going on, the original purpose goes away, and you end up having more destruction than you have construction. So let's talk about testing for just a minute.
Okay.
I don't mind the idea of a statewide assessment. Okay, I mean that part of it doesn't bother me, because each school district is unique, each student is unique, each area has their own socio-economic things that are going on. Some districts are more affluent than others. And how do you judge if an A in Aldine, Texas, north of Houston, is the same as an A in the area where Southern Methodist University is, for that high school, those kids in Dallas? And so a state assessment is a way of seeing where these kids are standing statewide. For that purpose, hey, I'm fine, I'm good with it. It's when they use the test to determine whether a school district is successful or not, or whether it meets a particular standard, then it starts becoming political. And if you're a school district, if you're a superintendent, if you're a principal, if you're a teacher, your job depends on the test scores. And so what goes out the window is, what's the caliber of the kids you're working with? Where are they starting, and where are you trying to get them? And so when it becomes tied to money or jobs, most people are going, yeah, that's the way it needs to be done. And I'm going, wait a minute, there's more to it than that. And so what happens, and this is what you're getting at, is that eventually, if you keep pounding the people on the scores, they're going to start teaching the test, and they're not going to be teaching the subject. And then most of the school year is all tied up in the kids performing on the test. And then something that, for the audience, that JR and I had a sidebar conversation on is that when you're faced with a group of students, if you have 100 students and you know that 20 of them are going to pass the test and 40 of them are on the bubble, they may or may not pass, and then you've got another 40 that no matter what you're going to do, they're not going to pass the test. Who are you going to spend your time on? You're going to spend the time on the kids who are right there on the bubble, because if you get some of them to pass that normally wouldn't, then you're showing progress. And what happens when you do that is you're ignoring the 20 at the top,
Yes.
and you're ignoring the 40 at the very bottom. You're only spending your time with those kids in the middle that your job is dependent upon, your bonus is dependent upon, and you end up with an unequal level of teaching, and you end up with shortchanging the kids who need to be really challenged at the top to think harder, stronger, faster, and the kids at the bottom that need the most help at all. And so you end up with a very unequal situation. And so, like I said, it's always complicated. But when it comes to tests, there are needs and reasons for having one. But when you start using that for other purposes, then I think that's where you run into trouble. And so now then, let's talk about those young black men that you're bringing up, that they're like any other young person on the planet. When they first go to school, they love school. They
Yes.
have social interaction. They'll have a crush on their teacher. They like the recognition of, oh, good for you, Johnny, you had the answer. You're such a smart young man. And they thrive on it. And you have to ask yourself, then in 6 short years, they go from that loving school to hating school, and honestly and sincerely, educators, educational instructors at the university level study this, and every one of them has their own pet theory, their own pet idea. But you can't escape the fact it's still happening. And when you asked me the question, I looked at it and I thought, well, what I know from my own experience is one of the greatest things you're up against is peer pressure. And for the black community, and this is, I never listened to it, but that counselor I talked about that I knew real well, she used to tell me that there was a program called The White Man, and it was a satirical program where you had this white person always having to explain how the real world works. And that whole thing has grown into a whole movement of white patriarchy, which is nonsense. But still, I'm not here to explain, but just to give some insight. So, in our sidebar conversation, what Jimmy and I talked about was this. I want the audience to think about how much time does a child spend in a classroom on instruction on a particular subject. And it could be math, it could be English, it could be a whole number of things. But most classes are 45 minutes long if you go to the same class every day. If you're on a block schedule, then it's approximately 90 minutes long if you go to that same class every other day. And so when you add it up, you're in that particular class about 3.5 hours a week getting instruction in that one subject. Okay, let's call it math. Okay, now let's look at athletics. Okay, when these kids start getting up into middle school, that's when sports starts entering their life.
Yes.
How much time do they spend on sports? Okay, so now at the high school level, okay, you will have your PE period, which is in a block session, a block schedule will be 90 minutes. And with athletes, they will double block them. So that means that they're in that class for 90 minutes every day.
Yes.
And then they have practice after school, which is 2.5 hours long. And so you compare how much time they're spending perfecting their athletic skill and compare that to how much they're spending to perfect their intellectual skills. And the difference is stark. I mean, I'm looking at my cheat sheet of the answers that I said. Oh, here it is. Okay. So they're spending about 250 minutes a week, or about 4 hours and 10 minutes. So I said that earlier. I said it wrong.
Okay.
On the subject. And they're spending about 1,000 minutes per week practicing a sport. And so that's 16.6 hours. So 4 times as much, just as a general rule of thumb, 4 times as much to perfect a sport as they are doing to perfect their academics. So when you're looking at this, and you tell me, okay, you're the expert, what is the emphasis in the black community on if you want to make it out there, what's the pathway? Is it through academics or is it through athletics?
It's through athletic and entertainment. In fact, growing up,
yes, sir.
I dealt with the same issue, that I had to have my white set of friends who were study buddies, and we went to the same AP classes together, and I had my black friends. And if my black friends knew I was in the AP classes, they would have disowned me. Because if you're a black person and you make good grades, in fact, I carried around remedial math and English books just to give the appearance that I was in remedial math and English, so they wouldn't feel threatened. But in the black community, if you are too smart, then you get accused of wanting to be white. If you speak, and English was not my best subject in school. I was a math and science guy. So I struggled, and even today I still do. But I had to work very hard to teach myself English, to master it, even though it made no sense to me. A lot of times the rules didn't make sense. It wasn't like math; it was straightforward. But yes, if you speak too well, if you're too smart, then you get accused of wanting to be white. You get ostracized. It is not a pleasant thing for a child who's trying to fit in to a group. So a lot of times you just give in and acquiesce to the crowd and stop working hard to achieve. And that message is implanted on you at a very early age. And it is ruining the opportunity to have a successful life later on when young kids have to go through this.
Absolutely. And the thing of it is, peer pressure is probably the most overbearing pressure that a young person can have when they're growing up. And then something that Jimmy and I exchanged a week or so ago is that now you're getting that same message and that same pressure institutionally. It's not just kids against other kids. Now it's these prestigious people peddling the same nonsense. And what I'm referring to is that he and I exchanged some information on the Smithsonian African American Museum of Culture and History, where they produced a poster on their website that they've since taken down because it took a lot of heat. And the poster was basically saying, what are the traits of white people? What is white traits? And why is that bad, and why they should be abolished? And among the traits were deferring expectations, in other words, working hard and saving now to have more later, being on time, being diligent, and all of these things. And I saw that poster and I thought, God, how insulting. And then the other part of it is that you look at any successful African American athlete, male or female, African American entertainer, male or female, these people spent hours and hours and hours learning their craft, perfecting their craft, being the best at that they could possibly be. So you have to ask yourself, well, okay, so really being on time is a white trait? They were on time. Working hard is a white trait? They worked hard. They worked more than double hard. They worked triple hard. I mean, what was it? Michael Jordan was told in high school that he'd never be a basketball player.
He wasn't that good until about his junior year. That's correct.
Yeah, yeah, you tell me that. Now you stand back and watch. And he worked hours and hours and hours in perfecting his craft and became one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And so to lay that off as being a white trait instead of a universal trait for success,
Correct.
It's almost like they're trying to program people to fail.
They are. That's exactly what they're doing.
And it goes back to your pet peeve. Who is it that's doing this? Who is it that's saying it? And for the audience, please understand, if I say the word liberal by accident here, I'm not talking classical liberals, those people who believe in free speech.
No, those people are
worth
gone.
the individual.
They don't exist anymore.
We're talking about the leftists and the social justice warriors, those types there. They're trying to build a society of built-in excuses for failure. And I'm going, this is nuts. This is crazy. And it is the reason that I got into education. So if I could I tell that story real quick?
Sure, yes. The floor is yours.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so it was in 1988, the National Geographic Society did a comprehensive nationwide study of high school seniors and college freshmen. And they asked them a series, it was over 100 questions, on geography and history. And at the end of doing this study, they published the results. And I subscribed to National Geographic back then, and I read the results of the study, and that forced me to go online and actually look at the study. And it was questions that I considered to be just basic. And a couple of examples. When they were doing the summary, they gave some anecdotal information, and there was a college freshman that was shocked to learn that we were once at war with Japan. They would show a blank map of the United States, and no cities identified, no state names, and they would ask the respondents, put your finger on the part of the country where the nation's capital is. Over 80% of the respondents put their finger on Nebraska, the dead center of the country.
Well, that's the center.
Another respondent, dead center, Nebraska, Kansas, right there in the middle. That's where they thought the nation's capital was. And this was high school seniors and college freshmen. And, like most people, I read that, I blew steam, I thought this was ridiculous, and I forgot about it. Well, in 1989, because the results of that study were so stupendous, the National Geographic did it again, and the results were the same. And I can remember to this day, I was an independent businessman at that time. I'd left the corporate world and had my own construction company. And I walked out onto the patio and turned my wife. I said, this is ridiculous. And I said, if I stand by and do nothing but complain about it, then I'm part of the problem.
Correct.
And so I decided, I was going to be part of the solution. So I went to college. Now, I had gone to college. I had taken a couple of college classes as a high school senior. This was way before dual credit. I had to jump through all kinds of hoops to take these classes. But that was the only college that I'd had.
Okay.
And so I did. It took me a while to get things financially set up to where I could go to college. In fact, it took 3 years. Went to college, got my degree, also got my education certificate, and I was 44 years old my first teaching year. And God, I loved it. I loved it. It was like feeding me ice cream every day.
So, Everett, are you trying to tell me that white privilege didn't benefit you here? That somehow the school didn't just give you a degree, give you a teacher certificate without you having to work for it, and society and life just provided a means for you and your family to be taken care of while you went to school without you having to work, I'm pretty sure work pretty hard to put yourself in position, because I believe you told me it took several years. So it wasn't just a knee-jerk thing that you were doing. You had planned this and had to work very hard to make it happen.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. Not to toot my horn, because I believe that anybody that wants to do something, they want it bad enough, they could figure out a way to do it. Well, I had a construction business, and I knew that I could not operate it and go to school full time, and so I started acquiring rental property. And when I got enough rental property that I could pay my normal bills and pay my tuition and pay transportation and all of that, is when I shut down the construction business and I started going to school full time. And the other thing was, I was kind of under a time gap. One of the things I love about Texas is that you don't go to college and get a teaching degree. Those things do not exist in the state of Texas. You have to get a degree in your subject area and complete education courses on the side and pass a test that says you understand the rudiments of being a teacher, you understand psychology, and you understand childhood learning and childhood development. But that's on the side. And so to get it done in the shortest period of time, I carried 21 hours a semester, which these days, 12 to 14 hours is considered
full time,
student, which I think is, I think that's ridiculous.
Anything with 12 hours when I was in school was full time. 14 was the average. 21 is insane.
Yeah, you had to get, it's called an overload, and you had to get permission to do it, but I got permission. And on top of doing the 21 hours a semester, I tutored 29 hours a week. And then on the weekends is when I worked on my rent property. And because the closest college was an hour's drive away, I drove an hour there and an hour back. And so generally I was leaving the house around 6:30 in the morning, getting there at 7:30 for my 8 o'clock class. I would have day classes. In the afternoon I would tutor. I'd have evening classes. And then I'd generally get home around 10 o'clock at night, eat, and then spend the next 2-3 hours on homework. And so for 4 years, I got by on about 3.5 hours sleep a night. But it's doable. I'm here to tell you that if you want it, you can do it.
Well, Everett, because we have talked before, I personally know how hard you worked. But I think it's important that everyone watching this video, watching this show, understand also that when you accuse someone of getting through life on white privilege, then you are doing a disservice and you're being very offensive to the hard work that that person had to go through to get to where they are. And I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. I just saw a thing where Oprah was basically telling people like you who work very hard for what they have in life that somehow just them being white, still they benefited from white privilege and somehow didn't have to work as hard or go through as much as the next person. And I just think that's wrong, and we have to get away from this race politics. People who work hard, who make good decisions, do the right thing, and plan, you're not guaranteed success, but you're putting yourself in a position to have good things happen to you, versus the people who don't. And it is not racism because you don't plan and execute your plan to achieve something in life. It is not racist because you grew up in a one-parent home, and people who have two parents are somehow racist, or parks now have been told are racist. So it just seems like everything in life is becoming racist when people don't want to work hard to do things in life that they have to do to be successful.
Well, and then the other part of it is too, everything you said, from soup to nuts, everything you just said, plus the fact that hard work is not always guaranteed.
Not always, that's true.
Because I had two other businesses before I had my construction business, and one of them failed abysmally. And I ended up with a huge debt. It took 5 years to pay off, but I didn't declare bankruptcy. I paid everybody what I owed. The second one was doing very, very well, but the companies, I was a consultant for a while, and the companies that I was a consultant for changed direction on what they wanted to do. These were small retail companies. And they did an abrupt change, and I didn't have enough of a customer base for that to survive. But it was going gangbusters for a while. But you look at Harlan Sanders, the Colonel from Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yes.
He was almost 69 years old before he became a success, and he had tried and failed multiple businesses. It's not falling down; it's how you get back up. That's what makes
That is true.
And if you're told by whoever out there that if you fall down, it wasn't your fault, it was the man, it was the establishment, it was white privilege, there's no incentive to get up. You've been given your excuse, and I just think it's so insulting. It's insulting to the black community.
It is.
It's insulting to the brown community. It's insulting to the white community. It's insulting to anyone. And, soapbox, I'm sorry. I'm climbing down.
No, you're good. And you're absolutely correct. Successful people, you normally don't walk up to the plate with your bat and hit a grand slam home run your first time swinging at the ball. Walt Disney went bankrupt 7 times. He wasn't like you. He filed for it, got the protection, and then regrouped and started again. So, but the secret is that you have to keep getting up. You learn from your mistakes, and the second time out, the third time out, the fourth time out, at the very point that you stop and you give up, you have lost at that point. You have no chance of winning at that point once you give up. But if you keep trying, you still have a chance. You're still in the ball game. You're still swinging at the plate, and if you keep doing that, eventually you're going to get a base hit. You're going to steal a base. You're going to hit a home run. You're going to learn how to be successful based on your failures. But you're right. These kids today, as soon as you fail one time, they use that as an example to say, you see, white racism, kept me from doing this, or the man, or Mr. Charlie, or white people, or white Republican, conservative Republicans. So far too many excuses and not enough. Get up and get it done and keep trying until you succeed.
And one of the things, for the audience, the way I came across Mr. Stewart was he happened to make a walk-away video. And as a hobby, I guess you would call it, I enjoy watching walk-away videos because I'm interested in learning more about how a person changed their worldview, what internal, what external things were happening in their life that changed the way they see the world. And one of the things that I see, especially from African Americans when they make their walkaway video, is the fact that they come to understand they've been lied to their entire lives.
Yes.
They go off and they do their own research. And if you're a person out there that you've not watched walkaway videos, or if someone has convinced you that they're all fake, they're not. These are real people, real stories, and they have a common thread. And that common thread is, so I did my own research.
Yes.
And so the turning point in their lives is when they stopped listening to what people told them was the truth and went out and found the truth themselves. And it's almost a universal theme in the walkaway movement is, I did my own research. And it's amazing how when their eyes are open, it changes everything.
It changes everything. That's not to say that they switch parties, but it changes everything, and now they can make an informed decision about who they want to vote for. But you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think most walkaway folks they're not suddenly running out and joining the Republican Party, nor would I expect them to.
That's correct.
Most of them become independents, which, hey, I'm happy with that. Then when if you're an independent, and folks, I'm a lifelong Republican. I'm an Alex P. Keaton. I think I was born a Republican. But then you begin examining every candidate as an individual. You're no longer looking at party lines. And hey, I'm happy with it. You want to be independent? Please be independent. And I think it's just a wonderful thing, and I find it exciting.
Okay. Well, Everett, you let the cat out of the bag a little bit, but it is okay, because I was going to make the announcement anyway.
Oh, I didn't know.
So next week...
Okay, so
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to say to the audience, we didn't rehearse any of it.
No, nothing rehearsed here.
Spontaneous conversation.
This is all, your viewpoint, and we are curious to hear what you have to say, and we love the fact that you're taking out the time to share this information with all of us, even myself. Guys, in the interest of full disclosure, part of the reason that I even started the Let's Talk show was a recommendation from Everett, who suggested that we do something, or I do something, to try to reach a larger audience. And he pointed me in the direction of some other people. I went and checked out what they were doing, and he was absolutely correct, because I want to do something similar to what they are doing. And so, Everett, next week, the article that you sent me on the Smithsonian and the list of white traits, I want to do that, make that the next episode that I cover, and it would be an honor if you have time next week to come back. I'm going to have a socialist, one of those Marxist, socialist, Democrats on the show also, and to share his views about how white privilege and racism is keeping black people down. And I would love for you to come on also, so it's not just me beating him up. I will have another open-minded person that I can ask questions to both sides and let both of you guys explain your viewpoint. And so if you are interested and you're available next week, then I would love to have you back if that's possible.
Yeah, as a retired person, I'm a captain of my own destiny. But first, whoever this person is, without knowing who it is, without speaking to them, I just want to say I admire them for coming forward and being willing to defend their position and their views, because a lot of times I notice when it comes down to the debate, they're heading for the door. So whoever this person is, kudos to them. I wish them luck, and I hope that this person will not feel they're being double-teamed.
I would do my best to be neutral so he doesn't feel that way. We've had plenty of discussions in the past, and I just want to referee, because he does tend to take your statement and mischaracterize it. You know, he'll say things like, well, you said all people, and you said most, and it's like, okay, I didn't say that. That wasn't the point I was trying to make. But I would do my best to be neutral and ask the questions and give both of you guys a chance to answer fairly, because this is not just a Republican show, and I don't want to make it seem that way. Those on the left, or those with alternative viewpoints, libertarians, the Greenpeace movement, Sierra Club, even the Communist Party, they have their views, and everyone should get a chance to hear what these people have to say. That's the only way you can make an informed decision about which direction, what's best for you. So I would do my absolute best to be as neutral as possible.
Absolutely. One of the things that back in the 60s during the Berkeley free speech movement, much as I may have disagreed
True
with
liberals,
people taking over the campuses and everything, I was absolutely foursquare for free speech then,
yes,
and I am the same today. One of the things that aggravates me is I spend a lot of my time on the comment boards on various news magazines and so on, and the moderators, they have an unenviable task. I wouldn't want their job, but still they tend to silence conservative voices more quickly than they do I'm not saying liberal, far left voices,
yes,
but at times they even silence far left voices, and I take the time to contact those moderators, and I champion the other side. I say, you should not be silencing anyone.
that is correct.
Everyone should be able to offer their opinions and their reasons for believing so. And the United States has forgotten that. And it's got to stop. This cancel culture has got to stop. Because it's ruining good lives on both sides. I think you've already recognized this. The left is doing a very good job of eating its own right now. It's a Jacobin movement. It's the French Revolution all over again. And it's so much more public, the way that they're destroying lives, and it's just got to stop.
Well, we're going to wrap up, Everett, but I have one more thing I want to run by you, and I'm going to give you the last word, and that is from a group I met with today, and a gentleman said something and I had to I try to correct him. But I'm going to run it by you and get your opinion, because you've been a business owner and you've been in the consulting field, so you understand labor. So the gentleman told me, he said he was taught and he believes that black people have to work and be 1,000 times better than their white counterpart. Not 100 times, not 200. He said 1,000 times better for half the pay. And I'm wondering, why in the world is this? Why are black people unemployed in America if you can increase your productivity tenfold at half the cost? Why are companies moving offshore and overseas into Mexico and Canada for cheaper labor if all they have to do is hire blacks and, of course, hire women because they work for less?
Okay. Well, again, you've laid out a lot of different things, and let's see if we can unpack it. The first thing I'm going to say is unequal pay is a myth.
Yes, it is.
I mean, I have worked in the corporate world. I have had my own businesses, and then I've worked in the education world. And I guarantee you, they hire by the position. The position has either a set salary or it's got a salary range that you negotiate. And it doesn't matter if you're male, female, green, yellow, pink, blue, orange, that everybody gets that same pay. And so that's crazy. And then the second thing is that I am more willing to believe that a woman has to work twice as hard to get ahead as a man than I am to believe that a person of color has to do the same thing, especially since EEOC. And so I'm not seeing it as a color thing. I'm seeing it more as a cultural thing, because I've had women work for me, and I have worked for women. And I have seen some very, very good female executives, and I've seen some that got there because they had to have X number of females in management. And that's the same trope that they use for minorities.
Yes.
And so, you're the token. I forget, JR, I forget who it was. I don't think, was it Alan West? Anyway, he was a very prominent black man who was on a program, and the person opposite him, because this was a black man representing a conservative Republican view, accused him of being a token.
Right.
And I want to say it was Don Lemon.
That would not surprise me. From CNN, Don Lemon, yes.
But it's just my remembering that I think it was Don Lemon. But it was someone, of that nature. And that goes back to the same pre-programmed failure. You're black. Well, you're only a black Republican because they let you be one, as if you have to have permission to join.
I know.
Oh no, it's a choice. It is a choice.
And certainly he couldn't have come to that choice on his own. He had to be under some undue influence, or being paid, or his life is somehow made easier if he decided to embrace the Republican Party. So, with that, we're almost out of time, and so we're going to bring the show to an end. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, man. You have my utmost appreciation, because, like I say, this is the very first show, and you're the very first guest, and you had a hand in helping bringing this about, and I thank you so much, not just for this, but even for the other information that you have sent me and that you sent my way. I appreciate people like you and Miss Molly and Mona and some other people in the YouTube family that send me recommendations and suggestions. So, but the next show will be on the poster of white values, and we're going to talk about that.
Sounds like a winner to me.
Okay.
And I have to tell you, this has been fun, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm hoping that we're able to put that other one together for next week.
We will. And thank you so much, sir.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye to everyone out there.